Right.
It's like, oh, you kind of paint yourself into a corner.
Ready to get
Sorry.
started?
All right, I think we are ready to get going. Here, get this afternoon started. How's everybody doing? Hopefully you'll have a good week so far. This is meeting number 3, 4? Well, let's call it. All right, so I think computer loads here. I think first on the agenda was the review and approval of the prior meeting minutes.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I just noticed that one of the speakers, I think, is assigned the wrong entity. So Andrew Hansen was on page 2. I don't know what group he was with, but I did not with Foundation Development. I think it's on the next page as Homes for
Yeah,
America.
yeah. Okay, great.
I don't think that should keep us from approving as amended or whatever. Yeah. Why did you get me? Because I went to the printer and I was like, what did I do? I was like, why?
She's got like a fucking system. Give me the extra large paper.
Yeah, I was like, and these are normal size, so I can't explain it, but.
For that correction, do I need to do anything, Desiree?
I think you can just, motion to approve. I mean, if anyone else has any other edits, but then otherwise you can just motion.
But as far
to-
as notating that change, do I?
Oh, I can note it.
You got it?
Yeah,
Oh, there's one other, item with the.
The date.
Yeah, the date.
we accidentally left 2023 in here too, so we will change that.
Happened in January.
All right. Any other
Thanks.
comments, questions, concerns regarding the meeting from the last meeting? Hearing none. Have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Motion to approve. And we need a second.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and properly seconded to approve the meeting minutes from the prior meeting. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Any questions? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Thanks for everybody's flexibility on that too, having the meeting still happen online. I think that was really great that we could still keep moving forward with this whole process, so. thank you.
Yeah, and I apologize for absence. I had to drive to New Jersey that evening, actually, which was horrendous. So.
That's
it was
storm.
Yeah, because of
Yeah.
the storm, it was a rough day. But we'll get through it. I think the planning process update.
Yeah, I can take it from here to just go over the quick agenda. So welcome, everyone. I think next on the list, we'll go through just a quick update on where we are in the process, what we can expect from this meeting, what we can expect for the next meeting, and then what other outreach and stuff we have going on at the moment. Then we'll get into kind of the meat of the transportation discussion. This meeting is going to be focused on transportation and land use, and we have some speakers here to kind of guide us through that. Tanya Osman and Brian Ulrich from our Office of Transportation. Brian's attending virtually. Tanya will be here. And then we were supposed to have someone from MDOT. I don't know if he's running late, but hopefully he'll chime in at some point, either virtually or in person. So, and then we'll open it up for public comments. So could be a shorter meeting, just depending on how long the discussion goes. So we'll see. Next slide. So in terms of our planning process, just as a follow-up from our last SAC meeting, we had a public drop-in session on January 30th at the Severn Library, where we discussed the topics of housing and kind of those redevelopment topics we talked about with like the Cromwell Light Station and Marley Station Mall. We received generally good feedback on our ideas for redevelopment in those areas, and just got a lot of mostly positives on all of that, and then also positives on, we had some display boards on different missing middle housing concepts that people could, say, oh, I support this, or I like it, but not in my neighborhood, or kind of getting a sense for where people could see these types of houses. So we got some good input there. Also have an online questionnaire open right now through February 27th on those two topics, so economy and housing. So that'll be open yeah, through the 27th. What else? We also did some additional outreach this month with the Glen Burnie Rotary Club. Patrick gave a little spiel to them, just kind of getting them involved in the process. So just encouraging continued engagement with them.
Quick question on your last point. Was there any compilation of the feedback that you received from the Marley Station Mall and those sort of projects from the outreach? Is there any place that we could review?
Yeah, so I think, let's think about that. Are we gonna do some, I don't think we've done summaries in the past on those
So-
drop-ins, but
But there'll be the strategy, so. Taking like from the public's comments on with Marley Station Mall, but also previous like with the environment. I mean, we've mentioned before, like they've been, there's been surveys that have gone out for the public to take based off of, like what we reviewed here as, within our SAC, and then, those been shared out to the public in the surveys as strategies. And we can share with you those strategies that that are in the survey, but also with public, with public comments on those too. Is what I think you're right.
we also still need to wrap up our housing. Because we didn't get to have that second part of that meeting, so our drop-in was a little bit different in that sense because we don't have all of our housing strategies ironed out yet because we want to have that session with you guys first. But yeah, I think ideally we'll have the summary from the survey as well. But I don't know if I guess we could share out some of the like photo, because we do have like Post-it notes people wrote on, and we have dots on the actual posters for where we got votes and that kind of thing, but a lot of it is also just people talking to us too, so, I think,
I mean, it would be nice for us to
yeah,
have that information so we know what, the community themselves are looking at
yeah,
before we decide what's best.
Yeah.
right,
The answers to the questionnaire are in the hub, right? The planning hub. I
yes,
think you can see a lot of that data in there from
yes,
the questionnaire at least.
yes, for sure. Yeah, so that's kind of our biggest data points, that questionnaire. And then the drop-in is just kind of an additional point, but
Okay.
yeah, merging those two is good.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can go to the next slide. So this is the fourth meeting. Our next meeting is gonna be in March. We'll also be here at this location. It's gonna be on land use and zoning. So we're gonna have, some presenters, to talk about the development process. It's actually gonna be a joint meeting with our Region 1, group. And so we'll all start with a presentation on redevelopment or the development process so Region 1 and Region 3 will be part of that, and then we'll split off and go into two groups where our group, we're hoping to work on a vision statement. So this is my pitch to see if anyone is interested in working on the vision statement. With our last region plan for Region 7, we developed a little subcommittee of people just so that we could get through that vision statement in the meeting a little faster, and it was helpful for like 3 or 4 people to set aside an hour to meet virtually to go over like kind of some wordsmithing and ideas for a vision statement so that we could bring that to the next meeting. Is anyone interested in helping with the vision statement?
The 1 hour virtual,
Yeah,
I can help them.
okay. Anyone else?
I've got 2 questions.
Sure.
Number one, I won't be at the next meeting, so I'm not sure that'll be
Okay.
helpful. Otherwise, I would be interested, but the vision statement is specific to Region 3. Could we
Yes.
see, like, online, maybe there's examples from other, I don't know exactly, I'm just trying to, like,
Yeah,
obviously wants to be visionary and enlightening, but what is it actually like about?
Is it a vision for our zone?
For our region, yeah, so it should be, you speak as if this vision has been realized, so. Region 3 will be an accessible community that, You kind of write it as if you've already achieved the vision, it's sort of looking out, 10, 20 years down the road, what do we want to be? And so it can focus on whatever you think are priorities, so it could be transportation, it could be, housing, whatever,
All of the above.
yeah.
Yeah, and we do have examples that we can share with you. We
Yeah.
can share from Plan 2040 and the other regions
Region
that
7
have
one, yeah,
gone before us.
I'm curious to be involved in the process.
okay, great. And, I don't have to put you on the spot right now, you guys can talk to me afterwards, or I can send out an email too to gauge interest in that. So, okay. Okay, so next slide, I think we can move into the
Oh, yeah,
content
so,
here, yeah.
all right, so now we'll get into the meat of, the transportation discussion, so yeah, overall, the county policy is to focus development and infrastructure investment in targeted areas, where there's close access between housing, shopping, employment, and transit options. As I'm sure you guys are, aware from obviously living in Region 3 in the county, the historical development of most of the county has separated these uses, which creates a landscape that makes driving a personal vehicle pretty much necessary to get around. By separating these uses, with housing, shopping, and workplaces, so yeah, historically, construction of roads has not included facilities for, and infrastructure for walking and biking. And when trying to spread out housing, shopping, and workplaces, it makes it difficult for public transit to operate in a pretty efficient and, economical way. So to try to improve the efficiency of personal vehicles, which people are getting around, overly, as the number one use of getting around in the region and the county. And to improve the efficiency of such by mitigating traffic, constructing and widening roads helps to improve trip times for a short period of time. But in the long term, these improvements actually encourage more trips to be taken, because now the road's bigger and more people can use that access, and more development to occur along these roads and corridors since they've been improved. And this brings back the traffic amount from before the improvements were made, which is called a process called induced demand, which you may or may not have heard of before. Which just kind of highlights the need for other avenues of transportation, other modes like with walking and biking and public transit, yeah. And next slide.
Oh, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
How many targeted areas are there?
So, let's see, that's talking towards. You
Yeah.
mentioned before.
Yeah, it includes, so it's basically, I think it's really abbreviated for targeted growth areas, and so it's basically the town centers, so Glen Burnie in our case, what we have, it's our development policy area, targeted areas, and so we haven't really delved into that yet, so, but it's critical economic areas that we've labeled as critical economic, village center or town center, I think, and transit oriented.
Yeah.
So we have designations for those in our development policy areas, and those are kind of the areas where we're saying, these areas are where we want to focus growth.
So if I'm understanding correctly, those haven't been decided yet, right?
They have, we just
Yeah.
haven't, next week, we're actually gonna go over some of that, the development policy area map and how we That's what's approved through Plan 2040.
I see.
We actually can make modifications to the development policy areas as part of this process, but it is already done through Plan 2040. We'll just be, making small modifications maybe.
I see. And they can stretch across regions. I'm just thinking about the Fort Meade area, how that region is kind of split right there between Fort Meade and like up to Arundel Mills. It crosses two regions, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a countywide effort, but it's broad in that it's not, it does include specific, goes down to the parcel level, but you'll have larger swaths of areas that are in a targeted growth area. It's not like you have a little parcel here and then a parcel here, it's connected, so.
All right, so transportation systems help connect us from local neighborhoods to places where we go to workshop, learn, and play to the surrounding region and beyond. Planning for transportation systems involves collaboration among many layers, so federal, state, regional, and local agencies. And the county updated its master transportation plan, Move Anne Arundel, in 2019. And it included key goals for transportation systems that provide practical and reliable transportation choices for all users, a safe transportation system, a resilient transportation system that minimizes environmental impacts, and a transportation system that is in good condition. These recommendations were incorporated in Plan 2040, the general development plan for the county. And it was followed by the Vision Zero plan, which I'll let Tanya talk a little bit more about.
Vision Zero?
Yeah. Yeah, Vision Zero.
Okay.
And actually was also followed by Walker Hurl, the county's
Yeah.
pedestrian bicycle master plan. Kind of, one was adopted, one was adopted by executive order by the county executive. Vision Zero was. Vision Zero is a strategy. It's worldwide. It started in Sweden. And it's aimed at preventing death and serious injuries on our roadways. And the premise is that humans are fallible, so we should construct our roadways to compensate for that. Through engineering.
Good luck with that.
And as well as education, enforcement, emergency management services. And then we also include equity and evaluation in our plan. I don't know if you can pull it up, if you want to
Yeah,
show the
the
dashboard.
dashboard, yeah.
We recently rolled out in
So it should be
conjunction with
one
the
of the other
Department of
tabs.
Public Works a Vision Zero dashboard that allows the public to go in and see what we're working on, where the crashes have been located, what is the high injury network. There you go. So if you click on home, that's the main page where it'll give you a brief snapshot of what is Vision Zero. And there's a link right about in the middle of the page to the Vision Zero plan that was adopted by executive order in 2022. You can click on it if you want. There it is. But if you go back to the dashboard, that describes our process. There's a steering committee that's made up of a variety of agencies throughout the county that touch the roadways and the development of the roadways, including Department of Public Works, Office of Transportation, Planning and Zoning, the Fire Department, the Police Department. We've been working together for about 2 years to put this plan together. We're not alone in the region. Many other jurisdictions have it. The state is a Vision Zero state. It's, I think, the third in the country to become a Vision Zero state 2 years ago. So many of the grants that are out there now from the federal government and the state government rely heavily on a county having a Vision Zero plan to get the federal funding to improve the roadways to make them safer. So that's the reasoning behind adopting Vision
That,
Zero.
third indicator, it ranked third for highest number of fatal crashes is pretty alarming.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, so we just recently updated the data to reflect 2019 to 2023 in this dashboard, in the data dashboard. But some of that ranking might have been when we originally did the plan a couple of years ago, so I'm not sure if that's changed. But we did have a very high level, high number of bicycle fatalities last year. So it's not necessarily going in the right direction at this
So how
point.
many, I guess, let me ask this. This is, I've got a series of questions really. So how many deaths per, how many miles per death occur in Maryland? For every, how many miles driven will a death occur?
I don't have that statistic in my head, but I can show you if you go to data dashboard. So the tabs at the top, and this is brand new, by the way, there's still a few little kinks that we're working out, but it's really good to give you a snapshot. If you can zoom in a little bit, maybe in region 3, you can see those numbers represent crashes. But then if you go to the 4th tab over, then you can filter on the right-hand side. If you turn on that dot that says severity on the far right. No, yeah. And then if you choose just fatal, for example, you'll see all the fatal crashes. And those are all crashes, both vehicular.
And what, and is that just 1 year or?
It's
what's the
between
time?
2019 and 2023.
Is it
Okay,
possible
so 4 years.
to humor me and I could not, we were in our in briefing paper, we could not magnify things. I was trying to look for the intersection of Clarksville Road and Elverton because I've heard there's like 1 accident a week there. And I was wondering if that's one of the dots. I almost died there myself. That's why I'm personally interested. But it was like Foxwell Road and Elverton, where you turn left onto Elverton to go.
Elverton's here. I don't know where the Foxwell.
I think Foxwell
Here's Elverton.
is here.
Yeah, and again, then with that, what they're showing there is that's fatality. So I mean,
Yeah.
there,
so it could be
there may not be a fatality there, but it may be
Right.
other types of accidents, so.
Yeah.
But no, in the country, right now, the average is, there's 1 fatality for every 450,000 miles driven. Okay? So that's, you know, you have to, so that kind of gives you an idea of how, of your fatalities.
Mhm.
And I mean, where they say we're the 3rd most, okay, maybe we're 1 every 425,000 miles. I mean, we don't really, you know, you don't really know this, don't know the scale.
Well, the premise behind Vision Zero is that no loss of life is acceptable.
Okay.
So that's why it's, well, no, it's a aspirational goal because we're, you know, let's be realistic, accidents, they don't call them accidents anymore, we call them crashes. Because an accident just is sort of an oh well attitude. So we try to just focus more on the aspect of it being a crash, and then what can we do to put in some countermeasures, whether it's speed control, more pedestrian separation and more bicycle separation, things like that.
So again, we're looking at Vision 2040. So in Vision 2040, the thing is, in the next 5 years, we're slowly getting there. You'll probably see robo taxis on the road. These will be robotically piloted vehicles. By 2040, there probably won't be an insurance company that allows you to drive a car. For the simple fact that robo taxis, it takes that 450,000 to over 4.5 million miles driven per fatality. So it's 10 times safer not to have people drive because we're terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, and so when you're looking at your Vision Zero, that's the best way to go.
So that is something that is incorporated into the Vision Zero plan under the engineering aspect, when we're talking about engineering of cars and vehicles. automated vehicles is definitely something the state includes in their action plan.
Right.
So yeah, it's included in, those E's that I described, engineering, enforcement,
Right.
education, and EMS.
And, that's the other thing, and by that, think of people who will be in their thirties in 15 years. At that point, they're gonna say, yeah, I'm used to just hailing the, ride share on my phone, hop in and it takes me there, and I don't have to, talk to anybody. It's, again, it's the Verbo taxi will just work that way.
Yeah, but the idea that that's where the technology can go, and yes, the data supports that, but there's still an underlying caution people have with technology.
Oh, yeah, I mean, today, yeah.
Right? But even with where it's going, the point that we get past the concerns around AI, and concerns around automated driving, we're probably 10, 15 years away from getting past those concerns, right? And so this generation, our kids are not gonna be the kids that fully adopt. It's probably their next generation or their kids. So I think when we're looking at transportation and zoning, it should be considered in the plan, right? An element of the plan,
Mhm.
but it can't be the core, right? It can't be. I think we're far away from that.
Mhm.
You think?
I mean, I love the
When
idea
was
of
the-
automated cars.
Remember your
I don't know that I'm
remember your
completely-
BlackBerry?
Yeah, but BlackBerry's different. BlackBerry, it's one phone versus another phone, right?
We digress.
One car versus another.
Yeah, sorry.
So I would encourage all of you to go ahead and take a look at that. It's available, online for the public to see. I guess
Yeah,
you could
and
probably
we can
provide
include
that
it
as a link.
within your, within the Google Drive too, so you can see the plan.
So you
And-
can access that in aacounty.org. You can get to these.
Yes.
Yeah, for the Vision Zero dashboard, yeah, and the
You
plan too.
If you go to the county webpage,
In the form, so if you open it up on your computer, you can.
All right.
if you go to the Office of Transportation specifically, on the left-hand side, there's buttons and being a V, it's at the bottom, Vision Zero, and it will take you directly to the dashboard. And we're still in the process, the steering committee, of taking it to the next step, which is actually putting together an implementation plan that really drills down to, how many more miles of sidewalk do we want to add per year? How many more separated bicycle lanes do we want to add per year? So that we can start to measure the performance, and answer to you all.
Okay, so, we can, we'll continue on,
Talk about
Was recently adopted a year ago. It's an update to the 2013 master plan. That was an update to the 2003 master plan. In 2013, there was a decision made to exclude those areas of the county that didn't have water and sewer plan service. So that did exclude Crownsville and all of South County, essentially. So this plan has then decided to take in the whole county. South County felt very neglected. So we thought we needed to look at it as a whole and look at the network and really then focus also on the town centers. There's a separate section in Walk and Roll for the town centers, and it really focuses on separated facilities for bicycles and pedestrians from the cars, as opposed to shared lanes or even bicycle lanes that are just painted on road. It's just not a very comfortable or safe situation. And it's proven that if you can separate them into their own space by a physical barrier, be it flex posts or even planter boxes, that will save lives. So that's what this plan focuses on and puts priority on.
Is there any thought to where we have rail to trail versus having those walkable, bikeable lanes on thoroughfares? Does that change the prioritization of when or how? So if we have great rail to trail, do we need to really be focusing on our roads right now?
When you say rail to trail, do you mean trails that are put in
Or,
old
yeah.
railway beds? Yeah, the Parks, Recreation and Parks Department handles the trail network, including the B&A Trail, the South Shore Trail, WB&A Trail, Broadneck Trail. And that makes up a huge spine of the transportation network. So we try to work very closely with them on making those connections to those trails. In fact, Rec and Parks right now is working on that very project. They got an earmark from the federal government to study trail connections so that you can get the neighborhoods on the spine network and then getting them moving. Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
I think that's exactly it. And where we invest in, you know, taking a road and saying, we're gonna put a bike lane here versus, you know, we'll improve the trail system first, and we won't need this bike lane on this road, which may allow us to do other things with our roadways.
Yes, much of the trail network that is in those rail right of ways is already either slated for trail or built out. So,
But not necessarily optimized. And lights, you know, some of.
oh, yeah. Lighting, I mean, they're dusk to dawn because they're recreation, so, and then there's the whole, you know, how do you fund, enforcement activity? They have, I think, 2 rangers for all the trails. So,
Are there any areas in the county that already have like a nice walk and roll area where you can see that it's like separated bike lanes or walking lanes from like within a community or shopping center, like?
yeah, very
Built in,
few, very few. We just built one in South County.
Okay.
Near Triton Beach Park. I don't know how, it's maybe 2 miles, and it's a separated 2-way cycle track.
Mhm.
They call it where, you know, bicycles can go in either direction on one side of the road, and it's separated by flex posts. We've just recently heard that there's somebody in the neighborhood that's purposefully going and running over the flex post. I don't know what the motive is on that, but it's unfortunate. So we actually have obtained a grant to put in some more permanent structures that are metal. So hopefully.
Have them on like some of the more populated, like Route 2 or 175, or like those areas where you do see a lot of cyclists, like, or people commuting to Fort Meade or NSA, and there's like not really a safe
Yeah,
place for them.
yes,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
yeah. Route 2 is tricky. It's a state road. And so we're very limited as a county on what we can do on those roads. We can ask for improvements, but we're subject to their design standards.
Okay.
So we're hoping that as a Vision Zero state, that all of these things will be synergistic pretty soon, and we'll all be working down some path.
So I assume the walk and roll plan connects back to the target areas that we were.
In some ways, mostly, if you look at the plan, it shows networks within each region. So Region 3 will have its own little map that identifies all sorts of projects that were prioritized through a prioritization tool that our consultant developed.
When you say networks, is that networks linking what? Like just a,
To destination, and so you're looking at, you know, where are the densest populations and where are they traveling to nearby, like schools are a high priority. Large retail centers, large employment centers, those things would rate higher in the priority.
I'm always surprised at how many, there's not a lot of bike lanes in the Fort Meade area, plus like Arundel Mills area. That's a major hub, and yet
Yeah,
you can't really get to it.
well,
Yeah.
Brian's on I guess he's on the phone. And I think he's gonna talk about some of those major projects in the CIP that we are working on. Dorsey Road, around the mill 713. Sheridan's Path, we're looking at Milestone Parkway to get down to 175. And then 175 has the trail, and then, so we have all these things that are just like on the verge of construction. It's just still in design.
Are there barriers we should, just hearing how you answer the last question, are there barriers we should be thinking about in terms of state roads versus county roads? You know, are there places where we lack control, but yet we have a plethora of things in our region?
Yes, you're gonna hear next week from the development side of things, and next month, okay, sorry, did I say next week? I don't know. And as somebody that worked in development, it was difficult to get developers do anything on a state road because of, we don't own it, so we can't tell the developer to, so there needs to be a lot more coordination, and willingness for the county to require developers on state roads to put in the facilities that are necessary.
What percent of our roads are state roads versus?
I don't know that statistic, but Department of Public Works would.
That's a good point, because if it's coordination, that's just, without motivation, the departments won't get together. And motivation has to come from the elected officials, right? Otherwise, if it's not a priority for them, it won't be a priority for the people in the separate office. So if it should be, depending on the percentage of state roads in Anne Arundel County, if it's a large percentage, it needs to be part of.
It's a large percentage of the vehicles that are traveling through the county, I would say. They're probably the most vehicle miles traveled are on the state roads, and certainly the most accidents are on the state roads.
And we can look in terms of, like your comments, this could be good as a strategy or as a, if not, it's already been included within Plan 2040 for increased coordination on that, like different levels of agencies. And also in terms of I liked your comment before with specific points within Regency. We're gonna jump into that a little bit later in terms of discussion about specific communities within Severn, Glen Burnie, Tanyard, Millersville, about the like CIP projects that Brian and Tanya will talk about, but also your thoughts about what actually, you guys are the eyes on the ground in these places where improvements could be made.
One thing I wanted to add about something you said earlier about sidewalks. The county code prior to 2005 explicitly required the developer to put in a sidewalk during their development. In 2005, the code changed and somehow that section got omitted before my time. I don't know the reasoning behind it. But the county can continue to require sidewalks in some cases. But recently has been told by the Office of Law that there's nothing explicit actually anymore in the code. So that's a big loss on the county side. So, if you're trying to get sidewalks put in, I would push for that legislation.
So that speaks to the developers that are building like housing communities. You're required to put a sidewalk in, even though that's county property. Because I'm always like, so if I'm building a new housing community, whether or not I have to put a sidewalk in was determined by that, was enforced by that law, right? So in terms of advocacy and our recommendations, as we say, this is something we want to advocate for, the return to this policy that requires it to feed this type of goal.
Is that the only place that can go? So if there's, hey, we're building a new school, or, are there other codes that we should be alerted to that would also say any school must build a sidewalk,
Well, the schools have to go through the same similar development process. They're not subject to county code requirements, but they're subject to state requirements. But they have their own policy to put in a sidewalk on the frontage of the property that the school is on.
And that's just the frontage of the property,
Which is
not
interesting.
leading into.
Which is very interesting, because when you look at like the New Jessup Elementary School that they just built, that road does not have a sidewalk, but when you go on the back road to get to it, it has a sidewalk that literally no one will ever use because it's a service road, essentially to get to the school. The main road on 175 has no sidewalk, so there's no option to walk.
Yeah, there is this off-site school sidewalk CIP fund that has been renamed Safe Routes to School Sidewalk Fund. It's only typically $500,000 a year for the whole county. It is 1.45 this year. They asked for additional funding and it was granted by the county council, but then in future years it goes back to 500,000, which is really a drop in the bucket.
So one thing with, again, the walking and that sort of thing. It seems to be, a lot of people nowadays, they don't want to walk, not just the whole exercise portion, but some people will feel unsafe. And that's where it's like walking to school, even if it's, you know, back in our day, oh, you're only a half mile from school. See you when you get home, but it's not that way. Half mile from school, get in the car, kids. And that's why almost with at least all elementary schools and decreases as you go a little older. But, there's cars around these schools, you know, all morning. I mean, you have young kids. I mean, you know what I'm talking, about.
I want, my kids are going to charter school next year, and the bus stop is literally at Province's Park around the corner from my house, and I won't let them walk on Disney Road up by themselves, just because, I mean, it's just.
Are you
Not
worried about
the traffic, but just for, you don't know who's out there.
So it's
Well, that,
it's the lighting in
That's-
the park leading through Province's Park, and their bus picks up at 6:30, so it's still dark outside half the
Yeah.
year. And so there's, if there was lighting, possibly, there's a whole interconnected.
so there's a whole national, program called Safe Routes to School. And there's federal funding that can be obtained to hire. Now, the new bipartisan infrastructure law allows to hire a Safe Routes school coordinator for a county. That can be a contract position even. And those types of issues can be addressed through education. They can be addressed through additional funding. For lighting, they can be addressed through additional, CIP project. We just recently did an accessibility study using Safe Routes to School funding for 17 elementary schools in the county. The reports are online. It came out early this spring, or I'm sorry, last fall. And like Porterfield Elementary was in there, that's in Region 3, right? Yeah,
Yes.
there may be another, I can't remember off the top of my head. But the 17 schools were identified in New Van Arundel as a high priority for improving walkability. So we did these 1 mile accessibility studies to analyze, you know, what's there, what's missing, not only infrastructure, but education. What can you do to encourage children to walk to school? Be it walking school buses with parents, you know, that are home, to improve the safety options. So I would encourage you to take a look at those accessibility studies, which we hope to then turn into more grant funding for implementation next year. We also did a safety training program in the schools for bicycle safety last year.
I think we're gonna
Yeah.
move this onto transit, right?
Do we wanna have Brian talk about the other resilience
Oh,
2050 here? Just for a
Sure,
second.
briefly, yeah.
If you're there, Brian,
What was the
how
question?
about, yeah, resilience 2050, or, we'll get to the transit development plan just in a couple more slides, but.
Yeah, just, I think
better
Resilience
from Van Arundel,
2050 was
we can
just
more,
there.
Yeah, Brian can take it.
Okay,
I was just gonna say Resilience
No,
2050
Mine on
was
the
just,
bigger
Talking and
screen.
we are not hearing him right.
you gonna, are you muted?
I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
It doesn't look very
Your
nice.
speaker is muted.
Maybe you can call in. They're calling.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nothing?
No, we got you.
Can you not hear us?
Oh, I can hear you now. Can you hear me? Okay. I was just gonna say that Resilience 2050 was there just to show you that it's not only just a county plan, but we work with the state and other counties to form a regional plan to look at bigger picture improvements like improvements on 97 or even Route 2 and Route 3, and that those kinds of things are planned regionally too. It's not just the county in isolation.
And just to kind of wrap up then, like this, the biggest influence that region plans, like the region 3 plan can have is on local issues. Regional highways like the VW Parkway, Beltway are addressed in the countywide plan, the Plan 2040. So we have a lot of more influence on like just local communities versus looking at a bigger countywide area. All right, so yeah, now we're gonna get into a bit of our transportation discussion. So while transportation is an interconnected system, we'll discuss transportation systems from west to east to south, in region 3, as a way to organize the discussion. And as we discuss each area, we'll talk about the existing conditions, projects that are underway, and then any, comments from you all about future recommendations. And yeah, I'll give a little bit of info on the transit service around outside of our county routes, and Brian, I'll have you jump in with our county transit system, if that sounds good. So as we said before, it's a challenging area for transit. Transit systems have high ridership in more urbanized and dense areas like Baltimore and DC. Having destinations for housing and employment in concentrated areas is fundamental to operate large transit systems. So while about 85% of all trips in the county are made by a single person in a car, public transit provides an important lifeline to people who can't afford a car and can't drive for other reasons. As a reminder, a key finding from the poverty amidst plenty studies is that the top 3 challenges facing low-income families are the cost of transportation, housing, and childcare. So as our region matures, places like the Glen Burnie Town Center, and as the Glen Burnie Town Center develops more intensely, there's more opportunity for transit to become more highly used among the population of the region. So the region is served by multiple transit providers, not just our transit system, which we'll get in more detail in just a second, but also the BWI partnership operates a shuttle bus from BWI to places like Arundel Mills and a couple other major employment centers around the airport. The MTA has a couple bus routes that go through region 3, like Route 70 and Route 69, which you can kind of see highlighted in red here. Yeah, that's right. So, over by like the hospital, and down Route 2, and starting kind of from our region's point of view, from the Cromwell light rail station, and then coming into downtown residential Glen Burnie. We have that. There's the RTA, which is like central Maryland with Howard County and a couple other surrounding, which you can see in so I guess it wasn't maybe on this map, but it'll be more towards like this area with Fort Meade, but a bit more towards Lowell versus with Severn and
What does
BWI.
RTA stand for?
The regional, just double check, the regional transportation transportation authority, yeah. And then also, we also have running through the county, but not necessarily having stops in region 3 is with the MARC train service and Amtrak. So now to get to our transit service, you go to the next slide. I'll have Brian talk a little more about that.
Sure. So, again, the county offers some fixed route transit as well. Took over service from the RTA for the county specific routes back in 2018. The highest ridership route in the county is the 201, which is from Glen Burnie, Pasadena, Glen Burnie over to Arundel Mills and back. And you can see the numbers there. That's the highest ridership. And 202, which is down to Fort Meade and Edenton up to Arundel Mills, is our second highest. So those are our highest ridership routes. And you can see we've expanded to kind of have a loop system to try to get people around the county. But fixed route is tougher in a suburban county, and even in traditional urban areas like DC and Baltimore, the traditional everybody commuting into the city and back out is not what it is now. So those are the 3 main routes there, but I think part of Brooklyn Park might touch this region 3 as well.
Yeah, with,
Brian, what's the average ride? So I understand, I see that headways of 15 to 95 minutes, but I'll hear from my colleagues regularly that it could take them, an hour to travel 15, what would normally be a 15-minute, just because of how the bus routes route and all of that.
I don't think it's that bad, but it is not faster than driving in a car, and it is about an hour route for each one of these. Now, if you're say you're coming from Annapolis and going to Glen Burnie or going to Arundel Mills, and you have to do some transfers, that's where it really gets you to, because you're catching a bus somewhere in Annapolis going to the mall, then you catch another bus to go up to Cromwell, and then you have to catch another bus to get to BWI or on the mills or something like that. So that's where it really gets you is the transfers and the wait times. Otherwise, they're just in mixed traffic like everyone else.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you get the next slide, then the one thing we implemented relatively recently in North County was a call and ride zone. Again, we're not a dense county. We can add more fixed route, but we're for the money we're spending, we're not really providing additional service to enough people. We added the call and ride route in North County to try to pick up everyone else that's within the area, and then you can catch a fixed route if you want to go in and out of the area. But at least within this area, you can travel curb to curb, call ahead and reserve your ride. And like Andrew said, it's primarily for need-based riders at this time. We're trying to expand service and improve headways and frequencies to appeal to others, or at least get you to the mark or things where maybe more commuter bus provided it keeps its state funding to get you into DC or Baltimore or Columbia or wherever you're going. And I'll just say there was an expansion last year, thanks to the LDC, a little bit more area around BWI, Meade Village, and it actually gets you all the way over to the Mapes Gate, I believe, one of the gates in Fort Meade.
Is that a bus or a car or what is it?
It's a bus. It's a cutaway, so this is a smaller bus. It's not like a big 40-foot city bus. It's a smaller bus, but there's several of them that
Is it the
operate.
green ones that drive around?
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Okay, the thing is, not a lot of people know of this. I mean, how are you promoting your service?
So, I mean, that's what we've heard. And we're doing a transit development plan that's coming out. And our public meeting is the end of February. And we'll post online and get input on new routes or new services. And we're looking primarily to expand these call and rides to cover the entire county. We've heard that people don't know, aren't aware. We do try to get the word out. We work with community agencies and community groups to try to get the word out, but obviously it's not reaching everyone, and people aren't aware. So we're trying to do the best we can to get it out there. I do think maybe an increased advertising budget would help, and try to spread the word. That's part of the painting of the buses, the branding of the buses. So we were just white buses, and it kind of got blended in with everything else. So hopefully the green buses is one of those avenues where we're trying to get awareness of the services that the county provides.
And what's the cost of it?
Free.
Okay. If you start, that's my two favorite words. So if you start putting that on the bus, here's your free ride. That would probably help to move things along a little bit.
Yep, and we're working on at least in other areas, and I'm sure we'll expand it to the rest of the county. Is working on getting some yard size, and like I said, that free ride was the big thing we're trying to get across.
So
For people with special needs or everybody?
This is for everybody. We have a separate demand response service that covers elderly and disabled, and that's a similar service, and that's what this is modeled after. But that's a countywide service and it actually travels outside the county. So if they have medical appointments in Baltimore, so just like six places in Baltimore, the hospitals and stuff that we go to, and maybe a couple in other counties as well. But so that's elderly and disabled. And I say elderly, I think it's 55 and older. And then this would be is available for anybody. Anybody that lives within the zone can call ahead, get a ride, schedule a trip, and go anywhere else within this zone, curb to curb. And you just have to schedule it, and you'll get picked up. They'll give you a time within 15 minutes that they'll show up. So it's not you know, it's not like a cab and it's just you, but it's a shared ride, but, there's software that programs the rides.
So that's what I was gonna ask, is it from the users that have used it so far, do you find that it's, a lot of shared rides, like you have a volume of people on the buses, or one or two at a time?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just one, but we have that number I can get you, but it's not a lot at this point. It's at most say 3 people at a time. And again, I think it's that getting the word out. There are some other issues. I think we're still running this or still advertising it as a 2-hour call ahead service, so it's not real convenient. People don't schedule your trips quite that like that. But we've got a new app that will allow you to schedule it, and as soon as the ride becomes available from scheduling standpoint, then you'll be able to take it. So I think that will help make that more popular. Yeah, so right now the ridership, the passengers per trip is not very high, but we're hoping again with further advertising and implementation of this new software that we'll be able to optimize that and get more riders, and then we'll have a better efficiency.
Is there any thought process to utilizing, some of the third-party vendors that do this work, like?
So we had tried to work with other vendors, especially in other areas of the county where it's not economical for them already to do so, but we would say subsidize them to be able to serve areas where it's not economical. But I don't know the specifics reasons, but we're working through purchasing and government purchasing rules and having to make it available to everyone. You know, it's been harder to get, you know, kind of you can't just get a vendor and sign them up. So that was a strategy. We were trying to do that, and for whatever reason, it was just more difficult than we couldn't get it implemented. So we've been running this ourselves for pretty, we think pretty affordably at least. And we actually implemented, the county implemented a 25 cents fee on TNC providers, or I can't remember exactly what the fee is, but anyway, so that's going to help fund the county service as well. But yeah, partnership, that's what we were looking to do to begin with.
Yeah, so like, not like vendors that do this same work, but like the Uber and Lyft, that if there's a way to streamline the safety concerns to offer the service through an existing rideshare company, right? Because, I mean, the capacity of operating this bus with 2 or 3 rides, unless you reach a certain volume, you're always gonna be losing money.
Right. No, right. So we're looking at in these areas, we're looking at going to vans for the areas where we don't get a lot of density. So we're adding purchasing vans. We were just using the buses because that's what our existing inventory is, but we are looking at, for the call and rides, looking at vans or smaller vehicles for areas that don't have as much ridership.
Brian, as you collect a little bit more data on this, is there opportunity for change in the hours? I'm thinking about partnerships with, like, you know, selfishly the hospital or, you know, the college, where we could have either shift workers or we would have students who are doing night classes or things that you might find there could be a dedicated transport service that would support those folks who are living in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and not necessarily, I guess, in your area, I don't know what exactly is in your area, but we've had that same request from the airport because their shifts, they got to get there early for their shift work. And then the casino, you know, they get out in the middle of the night, those kinds of things. So yeah, this has actually gotten, that's one thing, North County, Colorado got expanded to Saturday service as well. And then, yeah, span of service is one of the things that, again, we've heard, and all it takes is money, right? So, you know, we just need more money to be able to provide more service. So if expanding it to weekends and later nights is a priority for community, then the county will pay for it. But I guess it's got to reach enough critical mass to make that request heard.
So how do you plan to advertise?
We have a rideshare coordinator that has a budget to do some advertising. And there's I guess a plan. But again, same kind of thing. It needs money. And so right now we've been spending more money, I guess, on operating a service to make sure we get drivers and all that, as we're now catching up and getting back into being able to provide everything, then again, there's a plan. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but a number of ways. They have targeted advertising through phones and things like that they're trying to do.
I'm just thinking something like Facebook, where Facebook, they have an incredible, I don't work for Facebook, by the way. Facebook, but they have an incredible, they know that your zip code is 21, like 211XX and 210XX. You can throw an ad up on they're as they're scrolling through, hey, you get a free ride around the county. And
Yeah, I mean, we're on Facebook and they with some of the vendors that the person does the advertising with, they geofence the phone data, and if you're in this zone within the pickup zone or whatever, they can target you as well. So they're doing that. Again, it's a amount of money of how much we can flood the market with ads and stuff. So obviously we don't have enough if we're not getting the word out sufficiently.
And I think we'll, if there's any more questions or.
Just a recommendation about like, whatever the successes are of this program, like, if there's any data that shows like time from call to drop off, to know, okay, this is the average call to drop off without guaranteeing it, because I travel to BWI all the time. And I didn't know this existed, and I'm always parking my car at BWI and paying hundreds of dollars to park there. But so if I could be reasonably certain that I get there even, half an hour early, I would take advantage of this. But if I have a 2-hour window plus the 2-hour time they take to get to the airport, I'm not gonna sit there 4 hours early. So if there's any sort of data that you can provide on like average time from call to delivery, that might help with some of the concerns that people might have about getting to work.
Yeah, I don't know if we have that specifically, but that's something we can look into. I know we do have like, where we have the window of pickup, how are we on time within that window? What percentage of that, some of that data we report on for those pickups, but I'll see what we can find. And if not, like you said, that's what we need to track. And then if we are doing poorly, then that'll help us of like you said, reliability is the biggest issue with any of these services. Is the bus going to be there when I need it? Like you said, some level of flexibility is expected, but it needs to be there within a reasonable amount of time. So that's what we're trying to improve.
And just to reiterate what was said about the hospital system, where I think in terms of promoting it, the HR departments within your major employment centers, and then also your community management associations in the county. ACM Homes manages like thousands of communities in the state. So, and they have to push out information through their community managers. So there are hubs of like information that you have people, I'm gonna come to my community management company because that's where my homeowners association goes through. So if you can filter it through them, it saves you a lot of time and money going through like Facebook, because social media ads are incredibly expensive and hard to place value on. So just a thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Definitely noted. That's good. Anyone else or?
Quick thought, really awesome and interesting, and I'm wondering if the data collected from who's going when, where could inform the bus routes themselves and maybe cross-pollinate in the long run. Just a thought of tweaking.
That's that kind of touches on a little bit of the transportation development plan, right, Brian? A bit.
Yeah, so we have, just to address that, we just again within the past year implemented some better data tracking of pickup and drop offs and automated that, and kind of caught up with the rest of the transit agencies because we were so new. But we don't generally have a good O&D, just general transportation where people are going from. And we have a regional model, travel model that shows where people live, where jobs are, and it gets balanced based on traffic. It's primarily geared towards cars, but it does have a multimodal aspect where you they'll do a travel survey and call people, and based on your demographic information and your zip code, then it kind of gets multiplied out to the population and get an idea where people are going. So there's a regional model, but it's only as good as the data that gets collected. So There used to be better cell phone data that we could get O&D data for, but they kind of were obtaining it without asking proper permissions. And so I guess I don't know if it was the cell phone companies or federal government or somebody kind of cracked down on them taking your data without your knowledge. And so some of that data is less effective now than it used to be. But yeah, but there is some O&D data. We did do some survey and O&D work with the draft development plan. And like I said, we have a public meeting at the end of February. The draft plan is online. We can get OPZ to share that with you. We would love comment on the proposed new services that we're offering. And you can look at what we did, like I said, and projected costs and what our proposed plan is, of course, pending any funding allocation by the county. So take a look. We'll send it to you. You'll be able to either attend a meeting or we're going to post something online. We'll leave comments open. If you can share with others in your community and give us some feedback on what you like, what you see, what we need to do better. We really appreciate it.
Is that what you were? I think
You want to keep rolling with the transit development plan, Ryan?
That's about all I had on the transit development plan. I mean, you can see what the needs said and the recommendations, but really, if you take a look, it'll give you a better idea what we're talking about. I mean, just generally, go back real quick, I guess, like some of the feedback we heard, especially from the Fort, was Pasadena to or Glen Burnie to NSA, Fort Meade as a service. And but so there's some services like that, some cross-county services that aren't being picked up, and then expanded call and ride zones like the North County one, kind of the rest of the county.
Do your transit go actually on NSA?
Well, no, we don't go on NSA. We do go in the Fort, but we can't go in NSA. And so there was some, trying to work with them, but they have their own shuttles. But at least getting them, if we can get them on base or at base, then they can get into NSA. We were working with MTA and offered a pilot, and then you can't get in NSA itself. And so they were still running their private vans, so it was kind of double service. And so obviously they would use their service instead of ours.
There's a new visitor center under construction. That would be a good drop-off location outside of the boundary.
Yep.
One more quick question. What's the app related to the program? You said there was an app?
So there's two apps. There's Passio, which is our countywide transit app, to be able to look at see where your bus is, and this more for the fixed route for the routes like 201, 202, the Gold that goes up and down Route 2, and that'll tell you where your bus is. So you don't have to sit outside and wait 15 minutes. You can plan your trip accordingly, and just get out there in a little bit of time before you need to. Pingo is the other one. That's the call and ride service. That's where you can order your trip. And so those are both on the county website, and those are new services.
What's the call and ride one? You said Pingo?
Pingo. Pingo.
So just as an FYI, that's not on your, I say, use Pingo app. So it's interesting because it's like when there's a drop down on your website that says how to request a ride, and it just says call, right? But then the next drop down in the next section says Pingo app, right? So if I just click on how to request a ride, I will never know Pingo is a way to request a ride.
Yeah, the website was relatively recently updated, and that we realized that some of the stuff kind of got mixed together. So we do need to clean up our website a little bit.
Yeah, that's not the only.
So, kind of a question, are there like any restrictions on people who can use the call and ride? For example, I know no one here has ever had a 14-year-old daughter who decided, oh, I think about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll use the call and ride and go riding around the county.
That's 13.
Oh, okay. So
5 to 12 must be a company. So,
okay.
sorry.
So 14-year-old's gone. Let's bring up, yeah, I'm bringing up these scenarios. I mean, this is kind of,
No, I understand. And there was some, when the bus shortage was going on with the schools, they was trying to utilize
yeah.
this. But because it's a call ahead service and then it would be a shared ride, obviously it couldn't cover the demand that was there at the time.
Okay.
Do we want to take a little break? We're kind of changing topics from
Yeah.
here to transportation, from transit to transportation roads. Do you want to take a little break or are you guys, okay, let's do that. Let's say come back like 7:02, like it's 5 minutes.
Alright.
Do you want to make sure you unmute Patrick?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, so.
All right, so we're gonna pivot to roads now, and we're gonna structure this by talking about them at the community level. So we'll start with Severn. And so this image is from the feedback map we had posted back in May to July. And so we got, several comments. The blue diamonds are where people said, those were dream its. The yellow squares were fix its, and the green circles were love its. So you can kind of get a sense of where people had comments. This was not just for transportation, but a lot of the comments were transportation focused. So it gives you some sense. So generally what we heard, so I'm gonna just talk about generally what we heard from the feedback map, and then Brian can go into what capital projects we have planned in these communities, more specifically. So overall, we heard just, there's been a lot of development in the last 20 years in this area. The roads are congested, land uses are spread out. It's largely residential, with schools, parks, and a few shopping centers mixed in. It's hard to walk or bike between places, sidewalks are disconnected. We heard a lot about Maryland 174 and Maryland 170, the intersection there being a key intersection where there's more development occurring, but there's also people expressing concerns about safety and accessibility, like picking up and dropping off kids from Severn Elementary School. The three of us actually walked around that area too, and there are no crosswalks. It's pretty bad in terms of pedestrian accessibility. So I can concur with that. Porterfield Road, we also got a lot of comments about the current congestion issues there, concerns about a mix of truck traffic and traffic from shopping centers and residential commuting.
Where is that on the map, Porterville?
Well, Porterfield Road is 174. So.
Yeah, it just keeps going
Yeah.
towards.
So there's yeah, right. And then we also heard about access and safety concerns around the areas of Mead Heights Elementary, Buckland Elementary, and the Severn sector being areas of concern. So I think we'll pass it to Brian to talk about the projects we have planned for Severn. And then we can all check back with you guys on what additional thoughts you have for this area.
Now, ironically, you have you talked about that, the intersection around Van Bachland, but ironically, you have one of your green dots there for the new Severn Center that people are very impressed with.
Right.
Maybe we ought to try to have one of our meetings there so people can see
It's a nice building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
work out there.
we've tried, it's unfortunately the hours, like they don't like us. Staying us past like 8 or so it just cuts off a
They
bit.
don't like the hours we keep, huh?
It would be a great place to meet, I would agree.
Yeah. All right, so, yeah, you can go to the next slide. All right.
Yeah, so a lot of the issues that were brought up, we are addressing. There is a state and county project. The county's contributing local funds to the project to improve 170 from basically from 100, I guess, where the 4-lane divided stops at 100 through the 174 intersection. So that project has been kind of slow going. But they are close to 90% design. I thought there was supposed to be a review meeting, but I was trying to look it up before, right before this, during the break, and I can't find where it is. So anyway, but it's scheduled to be completed design soon. There'll be some utility relocations. So county and state are working on that together, and a lot of these state roads, the county is putting in funds to improve. We have a new school that obviously came in, I guess Severn Run High School, and then the Cat North is going to become the middle school. And then we got Quarterfield Elementary that we did a safe route study. So there's some projects in and around those areas to try to improve bike ped accessibility, as well as making sure, if there's an intersection improvement that is needed, like the high school did intersection improvement right there at Stevenson and New Cut because it was their driveway. But where Cat North is, say it's kind of in the middle of Stevenson, maybe the Quarterfield Stevenson intersection won't necessarily be addressed by the school construction. So does the county need to make improvements there to help address, traffic there as well as improving, putting in sidewalks or something. So working on that. Severn Library Transit Center. I'm sure if that's in the area, but we're making transit upgrades in a number of areas. Dorsey Road, Severn, Route 2. Put in some shelters, trying to improve the experience for the riders of the transit services. And there's other smaller sidewalk projects, again, in the Severn area that we're working on. The extension of towns, I don't see it exactly here, but we're extended Town Center Boulevard over to Reese Road. It might be just outside the area, but near the Severn Center. So the road's being extended, and then there's some sidewalks as a part of that, and a shared use path. And then we're going to continue that between Mead Heights Elementary and Van Bocklin with a sidewalk to add accessibility between the elementary schools, but also to the Severn Center. Jacobs Road, I think it was on the map. If you go back to the comment map, there was a comment down there at the bottom where it says Jacobs Road. I think there was asking for sidewalk there. We do have a project to add sidewalks on Jacobs Road as well, kind of to complete that network to get people over to, I don't know if it's Pioneer Drive or one of those roads, kind of get them all to the Severn Center in various ways. So we're working on it slowly, but surely. We did a study for, say, Odenton to BWI for some regional bike compatibility. So we've got studies, we've got projects. Again, it's just takes time. And we got a proposed call and ride service in the Severn area that would be part of that transit development plan. So that's our ideas for the Severn area. I don't know. I guess I think that's it for Severn.
Can I make a comment about so as you're developing the sort of this plan, I've always found that the signage for the bus stops in Arundel County all kind of blend into all the other signs, right? Because I know when you drive it through DC and PG County, DC has the red, white, and blue bus stop signs. That is clearly identified. A bus stop is here. If there's no shelter and all you have is the sign on the side of the road, I couldn't even tell you where the bus stops are near my house because the signs all blend together because they're all the same color, right? So in terms of like, if it's an option, having some sort of uniquely identifiable color system would be incredibly helpful. Or shape or something, because they all blend together. I literally just had to look it up to see what they look like, because I'm like, I couldn't tell you where the buses are. And I live off of 175.
Yep. I understand. I agree.
I have a question. Where does the funding come from these projects, for the projects you're gonna be doing?
So from a variety of sources, there's county bonds, there's impact fees, and then there's grants that we get. And so we leverage a lot of state funding, where if we put in 20%, they have 80% federal funding. A lot of the bike ped improvements are federally funded. So they're obligated to spend that money on sidewalks, but they need a local match. So if the county can provide a local match, they'll spend them in this county within reason. Not every county can provide as much local match, but they do have to spread it geographically as well. But we have a lot of need. We have a lot of justification for adding sidewalks, a lot of people, and so we've had a good partnership with them on putting in sidewalks and trails for that matter. So a variety of sources, and sometimes requirements from development, but I would say historically development obviously is the first comment was infrastructure hasn't kept up with development, so there hasn't been as much from that.
Is it coming from, any of it coming from the general fund? Or is it all coming?
There is some pay go. I'd have to look specifically. If you look at the CIP, they will give you a breakout of where the money is coming from and by what category. We can get that for you or show you where it is in the budget. And then of course, you know, I don't know if that will be in the PAB draft that goes, the draft budget that goes to the PAB. Is it this month, Patrick? I think it's this month.
Yeah, very.
So, but generally when the CIP comes out, it has that information. So it'll show you both by project and then kind of overall by program, like where the money's coming from.
Does and this might be for next month, does the impact fees that the developers pay stay in the area that the development's in, or is it generally used throughout the county?
There are impact fee zones. So some of them are smaller than others and some of them are pretty big. But so they do stay within the zone that they are, come from, but the zones vary in size and it could be one side of the zone or the other.
Is that for the traffic impacts, traffic impact for the subdivisions, or is it for the building permit impact, road impact fee?
It's a building permit impact fee that gets assessed, and there's public safety, schools and transportation, I believe. And so it gets charged at the building permit stage, but it's a generic. It's supposed to be including everything that wasn't picked up in the traffic study. So you do a traffic study to determine adequacy of public facilities. If there are inadequacies found, they have to pay for them or mitigate at least so that they don't make it worse than it is. They don't have to fix a failure or a poor situation, but they can't make it worse. And then the impact fee is just supposed to be, and you're also going to make all these other roads generally a little bit, worse. So we need to address that. And so that's kind of a fee to clean up everything else that's not picked up by the traffic impact study.
Well, thank you.
And I think there's an impact fee study. I don't know if that's coming out yet or still in draft. Patrick might be able to tell you too, but they're looking at impact fees as well as adequacy of public facilities, kind of doing an overall study just to clean up, trying to identify what's working, what's not working, and how we can improve it.
Great, thank you.
I have a quick question about, you highlighted the area around the new high school, Stevenson Road, New Cut. Patrick was gracious enough to come to my Rotary Club a couple weeks ago, and the level of concern was, sort of through the roof. I got a brand new appreciation for what Patrick does, Andrew do for a living by hearing the concern. Have you guys heard similar,
Oh yeah. I mean, yep. We've heard a lot of that, and generally people don't show up to the meeting to tell you you're doing a good job. They usually come when they have a problem. So that's kind of par for the course, but we're doing the best we can. We've got a number of projects, like we said, Grover, New Cut, two sides of New Cut, Stevenson, trying to help make some of that better, at least as far as the pedestrian goes. And then the school did a little access improvement there at the intersection, and they're putting in 2 lights, I guess, also at Grover and New Cut as well. So trying to do that, like we're talking about, schools are always have a lot of traffic, so it'll still be an issue, but we'll just have to see how good a job we did or we're doing, because a lot of these contracts got to be built by this fall, so we're trying to get it out by early spring.
So with all of that being said, is there anything we're not capturing in Severn that, like, any other transportation improvements you guys see as needs that we haven't talked about? I know, Ron, you live in Severn, right? I'm thinking anybody who hasn't spoken up yet. Lenise, you're in Severn too, right? Anyone we haven't, anything else we're missing?
Got one.
Yeah.
And I think I saw it on one of these other pages alluded to. The the Y at Newport and Gambrills Road. I know that, like, it seems to me observationally, like, compared to other intersections, and that like a lot of traffic, but there are relatively a lot of accidents compared to the amount of traffic at that intersection, so just throw that one out as potentially, could it make a nice traffic circle? This big intersection?
Yeah, I know that's been looked at a number of times. I guess it hasn't quite risen to getting any funding right now. I think there's further down at Gambrills and Dicus Mill. There's a study going on there. There were some severe accidents, I guess, and sight distance issues. And so that I think there's going to be a roundabout there. There's some intersection treatment that's being proposed there. I can't remember. I think it's a roundabout there. But the New Cut Gambrills also is one that needs to be addressed. And again, like I said, these are projects we're working on, but we've got a lot more identified that we just don't have funds to get to yet. But future plans. So that's one that we've looked at, but again, we'll take your input to prioritize it higher.
Are the sidewalks on Reese Road, where would they end? I think you mentioned it. Are they just focused around like the schools of the community center? Or will they like extend all the way up until like the Severn Road intersection? Because there's just a lot of walking that occurs and the sidewalks kind of end and people are still walking up towards that like Severn Elementary, the McDonald's, that whole little strip.
Yeah, I mean, so there's not a project right now, but we know it's a need, and that's kind of a long range plan. But there is a shoulder, but it's very dangerous to walk along that road. I'm sure, as you know. So yeah, I mean, we recognize that we can't stop there. That's just the first priority. But like I said, those are those longer term projects that we know are there that we just don't have funding for. That kind of, again, like you said, we'll continue to work our way from the school up to the other school. And there's a park that was purchased, or part land that was purchased there off of Severn Road that's going to be something. Patrick, do you know? I can't remember what it's going to be, I guess, or even if they've decided, I guess. But again, trying to connect those communities to the either Severn Danza or the McDonald's or all those regional draws. We recognize we need to extend those sidewalks.
I mean, I think that one of the most dangerous areas, but I don't know if it's been talked about, is when you go over the railroad track, the overpass there, because that's where the road narrows for the simple fact that it has to. Yeah. Because, and you really can't add to it, because I also know that when you go over a railroad track, it has to be the shortest distance possible. Just by railroad regulations.
Yeah, the railroads are interesting to work with. They seem to have a lot of power over the railroad right away that even the state and the counties don't have.
Yeah.
So maybe if they could do one of those little walk and roll lanes for all the walkers, because it's so narrow.
They can't, you can't do it though.
It's narrow.
I mean, I was surprised a couple years ago when they finally paved it after 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
All right, anything else in Severn?
Yeah, I have one comment or question, I guess. It's the widening of 170. Now it reflects you're going to widen 170 between 100 and 174. However, how about between 174 and 32?
So that's not officially on any adopted plan, but I definitely think that should be looked at and maybe put in a plan. But again, it'd be a lot of impacts on that corridor. So we definitely be looking for community guidance on which way the community wants to look at it.
It's a lot of private land.
Yeah, that's a lot of.
Yeah, there's a lot of residents along.
Yeah, it's a lot of private land on that corridor.
There's a lot of private land, but there's also a lot of traffic going down that road.
This is true.
I think if you put a traffic counter out there, you'd be surprised at the number of trips that go down that road every day.
I don't need a traffic counter. I live right there.
I have a personal request, I don't know. I'd like to turn left off of what I call squiggly old mill onto 170. You used to be able to turn left there, and I did avoid it in like rain and whatnot, because it was dangerous to turn left, but it pull out. But if that light was actually on, I'm sure it would affect other things, but.
What road, what was the side road?
Old Mill, but it's the squiggly one that's like between WB and. what's the
It's,
other name?
it's,
Oh, okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
No, it's not
No,
Porter
that one.
Field.
It's,
It's not the school Old Mill Road.
No.
It hits
Oh.
170.
yeah,
So-
I know what you're talking about.
Burns Crossing.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, it's Old Mill Road.
Old Mill Road.
It connects to Burns, to Burns Crossing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that little, it's
Yep,
that.
that little piece right there. Yep.
I'll call it squiggly
But
Old
you
Mill.
can't, you can't do much with that because that's where Severn Run is located.
Right, so you used to be able to make a left on the 170
Yeah.
and get on 32.
Yeah, or.
You can't do that.
Going south on 170, you can't make a left anymore. And I understand, it was, like I said, I did not go that way like in the rain, because it was.
Well, it's proximity to the ramps at 32.
But people are crossing or like cutting through the church just north of there,
Mhm,
because
to be able to get out.
otherwise you have to get on the, further east. And, ramp onto 32, and that is how I go every morning now, but it adds like miles to my
Yeah.
commute. Anyway, personal request.
People
Oh,
were
I have-
like cutting-
Yeah, there is a light, but it's flashing red.
Severn,
So it's illegal.
in Severn.
Yeah,
where
It's a
Disney
barrier that makes you turn right.
So.
Got it.
to be
Disney
part-
Road in 175, there's a light, and in the mornings, so there's a light to stay straight, and then there's a turn, like a left
Yeah.
turn. But in the morning, the light to stay straight takes you to Mead Middle School, I guess you stay straight to go to Mead Middle School. And you can't, so the people trying to go right, most people are trying to go right because they're trying to get to 295, I think. So the line down Disney Road is backed up, and so people just cut through, there's like a CVS.
Yeah.
So everyone, I would never do this.
We won't tell them.
Some people just cut through the parking lot on a regular basis because it's so, like, you have that one car that's
Yeah.
going straight, one car, and everyone else is like turning right, and it's just a little like, can the left lane go straight or turn left and use that light? And then like, where you can still turn on green, it's just such a problem
Yeah.
during the rush hour time. I don't know.
And so the crossing guards there have been, making a justifiable stink about it because they have to stop cars from coming through there, or try to, because there's kids walking.
Right.
And during that same time, so it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah. And
Okay,
then
we have a meeting with SHA tomorrow, so I'll bring that up because that is a state signal, and maybe there's something, like you said, we can look at whether you do a shared through left instead of a shared through right, or if there's other things we can do.
Yeah.
And it's the same one, Reese Road, when it hits 175, it's the same
Well,
thing.
then the problem there is that people get backed up trying to make a left, and the thing is, people aren't smart enough to know the center lane, you can turn any way you want.
But can you?
Left, yes, because there's no lane, there's no lane markings there.
There's
You
people.
can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
I-
You can only turn
Some people
from the
may or
center
may
if
not
it's
have
two
done
lanes.
it.
It's only left from the center lane, you can go anywhere you
I
want.
don't think so.
It's
If
not
you
marked.
only- It's not marked, but I
I think that's
feel
one of those forgotten traffic rules.
That's how I roll, Jason.
well, there needs to be someone do it in me too, because I told you, or else you're back all the way up to
Come on,
Lee Heights
Ray.
Elementary, and you have to sit through that light recycle.
That's all right.
So that center lane should be an optional turn left lane, 100%, because then you wouldn't have that backup of traffic
Yeah.
every single morning, and those people that use it as a turn lane wouldn't get honked at.
I'll have to look at that. That part of Reese Road, I believe, is owned by the fort. But again, we can work with the fort and the state to look at that. And I think you might be right. If it's not marked, I think you can do it. Just because I had a similar situation somewhere else and our county traffic engineer was on a county road.
I'll just make up too many rules.
Can we get a sign?
So I'm not sure, but I think it might be the same. But anyway, but I asked him on that situation to put the markings down, but he didn't want to because he wanted to allow both moves. So I don't know, but
You have
we'll bring those two issues up and see what we can work on.
I wouldn't suggest doing it in front of an MP though.
Right.
Just saying, it's it right there.
Well, I'm just gonna say that Brian from,
Yeah.
DPW.
that's right.
You know, Brian?
Is that you?
We'll see how well I'm known, I guess, huh?
I heard your whole time on Disney and.
The first one was Disney and, Route 175,
All right.
and then that was in 175.
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna add one more thing. We had what's the road that goes by like the Porterfield, was it Porterfield Crossing, whatever, where those Sam's and Walmart and stuff is? That road, yeah. What's that one?
George Claus Boulevard?
No, that one right there. What to the left where you just that one right there.
Is that Queenstown?
Yeah, I think it's
Queenstown, yeah, it's Queenstown.
Yeah.
Queenstown, that's it. Yeah. So we've had some complaints there too about traffic and various issues, I guess, people trying to get around different areas. So that's kind of again on one of those longer term improvements, looking at what we can do out there list.
Residents don't like people speeding through, and a lot of people do.
Yeah, a lot of I say cut through. I mean, every road is a cut through, but a lot of like through traffic.
And since we're talking about it, getting off of 97, going towards the Sam's. And with I guess the CVS is right there in the corner and the Walmart's right there. That is a nightmare to get off of that, off of 97 right there, because how the lanes are organized, you have to, like, only one lane is going left, one lane is going right, and it causes this nightmare of a situation right there.
Yeah, that whole area is a mess. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I don't know that we have a solution for that area. But we have a lot of issues and problems there.
State and the thing, because it's an I-97.
Yep.
Well, you should next
Yeah, I think we can move on. So, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but, County DPW is currently conducting a study of existing conditions and improvements for 17 elementary schools. And it's the safe routes to school. There's 2 in Region 3, Porterfield Elementary and Richard Henry Lee Elementary. And so I guess they develop a scoring system for prioritizing infrastructure improvements in education and develop a tool to track the progress. There were public meetings in October for 2023. And there are links, I think we put in the briefing paper to those, if you're curious, but do we want to include a recommendation in this region plan to support implementing improvements from the Safe Routes to School plan? Like, is that something you think we should do as part of this plan to prioritize that? Seems kind of like a.
Yes, I think schools, I mean, the universal.
Yeah.
Kids bring everybody together,
Yeah.
one way or another, so.
And move in Arundel, that was the priority, is to focus on making schools and the communities around them walkable, and by default, even make those communities more walkable as well.
Yeah.
And Tanya, you want to talk about the study we got funded as well, the new study?
Yeah, sure. We got another Safe Route to School grant last year to fund 10 more elementary school studies and up to 10 middle schools. So we're just getting that underway.
Are you focused on?
So put your plug in for your school now, I guess.
You focus on elementary schools in particular?
We did that initially because Safe Routes to School was limited the funding to elementary schools, but they've since expanded to K through 12.
And at this point, you all don't know which schools would be
Not-
prioritized for those 10?
Not the new 10, no.
Yeah,
In
right.
fact, we're still working with the Anne Arundel County Public School System to identify them. They, obviously are a big stakeholder and a big partner, so we want to make sure that we're picking schools that they also think are a high priority.
So what trumps what? So if we say absolutely, we want safe routes to school to be part of our recommendation, but then the code trumps the fact that the code is out there that says, oh, we don't have to put sidewalks in anymore because we forgot to update that. Does safe routes to school trump that when we say that, or is it like, oh, well, safe routes to schools, and then yes, we want to adopt, but the county code still says, neglects to.
Well,
Is there a way that we can make sure that that gets done?
so to be clear, the design manual is the Bible, so to speak, for designing a roadway. We recently, and back in, I think it was 2020, put out, or DPW did, new street sections, cross sections that include sidewalks for all projects that are required to follow the design manual. So all county funded projects are required to follow the design manual. The problem became when, if a developer is coming in and they are required to follow the design manual, then they have to put a sidewalk in. But the discrepancy in the code was, there was no requirement for them to follow.
So could something in the safe routes to school then recommend if a development is within X number of, X miles, whatever we want to use, of a school, it must follow that,
Yeah,
that recommendation? Or is that in there now? I can't remember.
that is not in county code. But it certainly should be. I think I
Or
agree
if we
with
could put
you.
it in the safe routes to school recommendation,
Mhm.
that's.
Yeah. Yeah,
You guys, a
absolutely.
developer.
Yeah,
that way
follow
you can
county.
reference, that way you can reference back to the safe route to school instead of having it into one county policy or county, policy that could change. over
There's a
time.
related, county requirement for adequacy of public facilities that the developers have to comply with when they go through subdivision. And during the traffic impact study, historically had focused on just vehicular issues and impacts. And we are recently just undergoing and almost finished, I hope, adding in bicycle, pedestrian, and transit requirements for offsite mitigation for the impacts that the development is putting onto those infrastructures. So hopefully that'll be addressed by that as well.
So if we have belt and suspenders and it's matched in a couple different areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so am I go to Millersville?
Yeah,
The
sure.
next? Okay, so Millersville, we didn't have quite as many comments. Traffic's not as big of an area, it seems in this area, but I guess the main things that have come up were in regard to the high school, which we already talked about, and impacts to traffic and concerns about safety, accessibility for students around that new school. But also further south on New Cut Road, we heard concerns about traffic congestion and safety, and a general lack of pedestrian and bike facilities in Millersville in general. So those were the main concerns. I know we kind of already addressed them in the Severn discussion, but Brian, if you want to talk about any projects we have.
Yeah, so again, as the Old Mill West is going west to Severn Run, then the Old Mill East or south or north, I don't know, the middle school to serve the old mill got moved over there closer to Oakwood. And so we're doing some improvements there, both vehicular and bike ped, to help access to the new middle school. And then that there's some missing bike ped links there too, like Elvaton Road. We get a lot of requests to do sidewalks on that. That's kind of one of those future projects. that we haven't got to yet. But and know it's a need. We talked about that. That's kind of it for what I think of as Millersville, I guess. And mention the Gambril's Dicus. I think that's I don't know if that's technically Millersville or not, but
I have two thoughts on this slide. So it's south of 32, so Gambril's Road as it crosses 32 and then hits 175, so it's just off of here. That backs up, there's no light there, but it's a T intersection.
Yeah.
That backs up all the way to 32 sometimes, like 5 to 5:30 time. So it impacts this area, but it's not in the area. And
So
then, yeah,
We're like going, backs up here,
yes.
going towards
Yes.
32, okay.
It's not a light, it's just a stop sign and it is very difficult to pull onto,
Sure.
5 to 5. I don't know about the morning, but.
are you talking about at 175?
Yes, Gambril's right
Yeah.
on, so,
And I think there's a light at Dairy Farm. And so
yes,
I think the state is working on a project to put a light in at Gambril's and 175 and tie those two together. I just saw a recent plan. Yeah, so they're working on that. I think that only has design funding right now, but it gets plenty of community support to make improvements, like you said, to that area.
and then I don't know if this is the right time to talk about bike lane, are we still on bike lane subject on? Okay, so Newcut Road, the west part of Newcut Road, the east-west part, and Dykes Mill, and I don't know, and maybe Branch Crossing, so there's like road bicycle groups that use those roads as part of their regular routes, and I don't know what their whole route is. I think they're coming maybe from Annapolis, I don't even know. But does the county have the data of like what roads those groups are, because these are large, like 20 to 50 bikes, all in like large
Depending on the
groups.
weather.
Depending on the weather. And I don't know why exactly they choose these roads, because I mean, I guess at some point, years ago, there were nice roads to ride on because they're curvy and not a lot of traffic, but now there is too much traffic to, have both those. So, again, it's not like it's more of a leisure activity. So in terms of prioritization, I don't know, but bike lanes, because there's literally no shoulders on Newcut. And it's curvy and wild for.
So are you talking about
What are you saying?
What am I saying? I'm just saying,
going,
I don't wanna hurt any of these bike riders and they don't want me
Stay
to.
off the road then.
But it's like, it's not like 2 bike riders, it's
it's a
like
whole group.
6.
They'll be on Newcut, they'll be on Dicus Mill,
Yeah.
depending on the
Yeah.
weather and the
I
day.
fear for their safety.
Yeah.
So you're talking about from Newcut, like onto.
I
Dicus
don't know
Bike
their
Lane?
entire
But
route,
what
but
from what you've
definitely Newcut, east-west, so the east-west part of Newcut, so there we are at the Y, and then
Yeah.
west. All of that, they
Yeah.
go.
Yeah,
I'm not sure where they go from there,
They'll
but I
go
think
up
they come
Burns
back on
Crossing.
Dicus Mill.
They'll get on WB&A, they'll go all the way up to the airport, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
but from,
And go around the airport.
from Millersville, I can add your
So,
comment.
but what am
about
I
Newcut.
saying? What I'm saying is at least shoulders.
Yeah.
I fear for them, and
They have no fear.
they have no
They
fear.
have no fear.
I mean, it depends.
Ride a bike on the main road.
They have there's no fear.
Depends how comfortable.
Like the quantity of them and I feel like it enhances, you'd think like more people is safer, but like they space out in such a weird way.
But it makes you.
That like you're safely going around
You
one group.
can't
and
be
there's
around
another
them
group.
because it's so many of them.
Yeah,
So you have to stay behind them.
but you don't know that
Where
there's
the
like
behind,
60
yeah,
Right,
until
right.
you're
So
already.
you're like,
Especially if it's on a hill.
So again, the walk and roll plan makes an emphasis on separated facilities for this very reason. It's, I'm not sure what the speed is on Cut Road.
40.
Okay. I don't know any cyclists that can go 40 without a
Oh.
bike.
Well, the curves like have yellows, like recommend, like the average, like the white speed signs are 40 miles an hour, and then the curves have like lower. recommended
Clearly,
yellows.
that's a road that needs a separated facility. So I'm with you.
So I don't know if you have like documentation of their favorite routes or how they select those routes. but-
We don't usually, we do think about Strava. A lot of them are on using Strava and big data. But it is recreational. It's not the group that we're trying to reach. The people that are gonna ride in the roadway no matter what. They're fearless almost. They're the enthused and confident, we call them in the industry. But that's only about 10% of the people. We're really trying to reach those interested but concerned who need that separated facility. And that's about 60% of the population, myself included.
I like that term, enthused and confident. What was the other one? Concerned?
Interested but concerned.
Interested but concerned.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, someone who wouldn't necessarily, if they found it to be unsafe, they wouldn't want to ride on that kind of road.
right.
But if it had like a protected or at least some area, at minimum, where they could ride, then they would be more comfortable.
Right, and I would ride my bike to work every day.
But you're right, when there's that many of them, because I have encountered them, it's like, it's hard for the like, you're afraid to drive, it's not. I don't know, maybe they feel safe, it's like a swarm, and then there's cars. And then you're like going super slow, but then that's not safe for the traffic behind you, I don't know.
I mean, just speaking from bit experience, I ride a lot, sometimes not with necessarily that, like that, I mean, not that group in particular, but with a group like that, it's like, it's almost like the bit of the illusion of safety, you feel like you're, but I understand as a driver too, that you feel uneasy going around. So it's, yeah, just highlights the more need for, a way to, as a driver and a cyclist, to be able to
Yeah.
get through.
In that particular case, it's not like necessarily a lot of commuting would happen along that route if it had a bike lane, but it's just like, it's definitely in the warm weather,
Sure.
it's a thing.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
we got it. Cool. Anyone else for Millersville? Could be driving, biking, pedestrian.
It looks like a lot of people had Dream-Its up in the, like, top left in that corner. Was there anything in particular, or like, a lot of people said the same things?
Or what's the Dream-Its again, Blues?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is over by like the Severance Center. Again, I mean, yeah, the feedback map is up on the hub site, so, this isn't just like a static. I can pull it up on here if you.
Yeah.
Maybe. But you can also view it like at any time to see what each of those comments say. It was just a good way for us to, because Desiree was saying, a lot of them are based off of transportation. It's kind of a little bit of a map you could tell from our data we collected of where we're generally having more concern.
I think it's the name of the road, Reese. People start thinking about Reese's peanut butter cups.
So it says, there's one that says more affordable housing. There's one that says more private and Christian schools in the Severn area generally. And one that says workforce training and access to jobs for felons. So not, so those are not transportation.
Well, they
Not
could
necessarily.
the Christian schools.
All right, so we,
Did you say access to jobs though? Or?
Yeah.
That is
Access.
that is something we do consider, like, access for people who have just been released from jail that may not have their license anymore, so. Consideration
right.
for transportation.
They're never allowed to have a license again, or just a certain?
I don't know their circumstance, I'm just saying, if there is somebody who
You can't
got a
drive, you can't.
DUI and can't have a license, but
Is there a restriction?
they need to get to their, they need to.
Driver's license. Never heard of a
Maybe
What?
because they don't
restriction.
have
Driver's
cars
license
right
to a
away.
felon.
Well, it depends.
I'm just talking about
Yeah.
people who go to jail.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have a vehicle.
But that's a legitimate concern, maybe, because you have the prison right down the road, and that's a major, like, not everyone who gets out is leaving the area. So.
Let them get out, can't leave the area
Or
because they're
can't, yeah.
on probation or parole.
Which means-
Call and ride.
You want to cover the Glen Burnie?
Yeah, Glen Burnie. So let's see, In the Dunbarton area, we talked about investments in streets to support the revitalization of the town center. The comments focused on a need for pedestrian and bike safety and connectivity, mid-block crossings between public parking garage and town center, connecting with the B&A trail, opportunities for streetscape improvements to add trees and green space to the area and to improve stormwater management. And then the need to improve connectivity between the Cromwell light rail station and the town center. Those were the main comments in regards to transportation. And then the projects. I'll let you talk about it, Brian.
Okay, there are a number of improvements and studies. I guess that there was the study done. They're kind of in the town center, and so there's a mid-block crossing that was kind of being done with the state to improve kind of some of that walkability right there in the core. And we're also looking at how to tie in. Somebody mentioned the tying in to Cromwell. There's the 7409 that's getting developed a little bit further north. Yeah, that getting developed as I don't know if it's as TOD, but getting developed. And so how to tie those people into the light rail and tie the light rail into the kind of downtown of the town center to make it more connected. So we're working on that. And then let's see what else we got. Oh, I know the Aquahart Road, which is, if you go back to a different map, you can see it better, but the Aquahart Road, the separated bike lane was the highest scoring in the criteria, the scoring criteria for the all walk and roll. The need for a bike facility on Aquahart Road was the high scoring in the whole Ped Bike Master Plan. So that's kind of a planning study. We need to figure out how to do that. We actually did a whole, so go back to walk and roll. There's the town centers. We kind of did a deeper dive into those town centers and did some more detailed planning on that. And then, working with the state, I know there's some signal improvements on 270. There's, some retrofits near the high school on 648. That they're trying to get done. So there's a lot of little things that I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of them, but trying to make some little improvements here and there and transit improvements as well. So just trying to improve it a little bit.
One of the things that I heard today in the Arundel County Bicycle Advisory Commission, we had a guest speaker, Kaylee. Oh, I can't. De La Fuente. She's a new hire in the county, with the EDC do you guys, do you know who
She spoke to you all
Okay.
a couple months ago.
But she brought up, we often talk about transit oriented developments, TODs, but she said, they're trying to promote also trail oriented development. So specifically around this,
Oh, sorry.
the other one is.
The other one.
This intersection here where the trail is kind of taking a jog. How do you revitalize this area so that people that are on the trail can access the businesses? And I hadn't heard that term used that way before, but it really resonated because I think people need to understand the more you can get people on the trails, you're gonna get, and if you have active businesses, they're going to patronize it. Especially you see it down at Big Bean in Suburban Park and Sophie's Crepes, and they've got a whole patio set up back there. So they had showed some images of what it could look like. I don't know if you've seen those, but it was really intriguing. And so I'm gonna try to work with her, and I encourage you guys to as well.
There was a lot of conversation in one of our first meetings, I think, about that part of the trail specifically around lighting, but there's a fence right there to the parking lot. And so people didn't feel safe on the trail because you couldn't get off of it if you wanted to, and there wouldn't be a way into some of those.
In the renderings she showed, it was like all revitalized and
That's, maybe it's not
No
that
parking lot was repurposed.
There's no fence from Dorsey Road to Town Center. There's no fence.
Where would it be behind, thinking about where behind the mall?
Oh,
where the
behind the
fence
mall,
is?
that's all the way
That's the
down.
part, that's the other part.
Yeah, that's further down here by you.
I think, I wanted to comment
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
wait a minute, if you go to the next slide, or the one you just showed. When I think about Cromwell Light Station, and I also think about the V&A Trail, I mean, it's nice to have access, but then the people have to feel safe. And, people around that Cromwell Light Rail Station don't particularly feel safe. If you've ever been there, you kind of understand what I'm thinking about. And then with the V&A Trail, you know, there's greenery on the other side, and if you're a female walking by yourself, you just, you know, there's nobody except other passersby who might help you if some unsavory character attacked you. So this is something that is in the mind of the public, even if you make it available, if they don't feel safe there, they're gonna be hesitant to use it.
Are there certain things that, aspects of the trail or improved aspects of the trail that you could think of that would improve?
Well, if the trail had, some ranger just driving up and down, you know, and then you'd think, well, at least somebody's gonna be driving by. And then the light rail, I mean, they might even have a guard out in that area, because it's just, most people don't think it's a very safe area,
Sure, sure.
and that has high traffic.
Well, and one of the things the county's working on doing is making those transit areas that are kind of, I say, semi-deserted during the day with just, you know, people hanging out, is that's what the idea behind transit oriented development is put some activity there. Same thing with the trail. If you put activity, you put things going on and more people, then it's just like any other place. It's when it's isolated and by itself that people feel less safe because there are not as many people around or other people or whatever. So that's, you know, if you put activity, you put things, you don't necessarily need to put a police officer if you have 10 businesses out there, you know what I mean? Like, then there'll be activity and people, and same thing with the trails. If you have activity and flip, you know, like Tanya said, the Big Bean or whatever is, you know, that was behind the back of this shopping center. Well, they kind of flipped it and put some activity out there. So if you put activity out there, there's more people, then you feel safer.
Yeah, it's a long trail, so they're long segments with not much activity.
Yeah, more potential then, but lots of different areas. For activity.
Brian, is there any plans to get from Cromwell to the airport with transportation through light rail or something, or do you gotta go all the way up in the Lincecum and back over?
Well, the light rail goes to the airport right now.
But that's, if you're in town center, you gotta go north.
Oh,
don't you?
right. Yeah, I got you.
There's right at Cromwell to go over. There's no path.
Right. So not specifically, it is kind of isolated. Yeah, that's an issue that I guess we hadn't figured out exactly how to make that connection better.
You know, did have an idea for B&A Trail. If you go to Anne Arundel Community College campus, they have posts where you can go and call for help if you need help. You know, like if you're walking your car at night and somebody's following you, you can go to that post. And maybe they could set some up along the B&A Trail for people to call for help if they need it.
Were those called blue light? Or was it certainly, yeah, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, helpful post.
Similar to the question about connecting to the airport, are there any really long range plans for the light rail to connect all the way to Annapolis or?
There was, when it was originally conceived, but for those of us who've been around 100 years, can tell you when it was originally conceived, that's why it kind of ends, and it's like, it looks kind of weird here. It's because it was supposed to go through, there's a route that goes directly from Baltimore to Annapolis. But there's a bunch of people who said, no, I want to ride my bike here instead of taking a train. So that's what happened to that idea.
Yeah. So the railroad used to run between Baltimore and Annapolis, and so there were people that have ridden it, that came to some meetings back a while back, but, again, the community, I guess, opposed it at a certain point in time. So, but the community, if the community wants to extend it and even if it's not all the way down to Annapolis, but extend it a little bit of the ways, then you get that much closer to getting it to Annapolis. I definitely think Annapolis needs to be connected via rail to Baltimore and DC. And there used to be two options and now there are none. So
And we're thinking really big about Marley Station. I feel like the spacing between the end of the light rail, Arundel Shopping Center, and then Marley Station would lend to a rail transit oriented development at if it extended to Marley Station.
It's gotta get to it's gotta get to the mark or somewhere. It just can't go to Baltimore. The light rail.
Yeah,
You
I'm with
gotta
you.
get it
Yeah.
east and west. It can't go
Yeah, I'm with you.
north and south.
and there was a plan at one point to extend the light rail over to Arundel Mills, I believe. But that got killed for some reason also.
That would
I
be
hate to be one of the curmudgeons on the line, but that's why it's called a WB&A trail, because the Baltimore Annapolis Railroad used to run up and down that road. The railroad actually, as you go toward Burns Crossing Road there in Odenton, the railroad used to come straight across that crossover, and it went all the way to Washington, DC. So those plans are not new plans. They're just revisiting previous plans and private enterprise that was run by the railroad.
And I'm not sure about terms of like, again, these are bigger, further down the line kind of ideas, at this current point, but still worthy of discussion, but, I know in other places outside of even the county, cause I don't know if people are thinking in the back of their heads, like if you were to take the light rail further down to Marley Station, the trail is there right now as an amenity, but there are plenty of, rails to rails that incorporate with, you wouldn't necessarily have to get rid of like that trail access. It could, and again, I don't know about in terms of like the width of that right of way or how many problems, because that's not, I'm not sure of the specifics, but in terms of thinking, it's not out of the question from what people have done outside of the area. Just to say.
I think it comes down to the question of like, long-term, do we want it to stay the same, or do we want to change drastically? Like, and obviously there's a middle ground, but I think the regional transit and getting to the airport and connecting these, public transportation beyond the bus routes, because we've heard that there's the demand for the bus routes. Obviously, we need the demand for those too, but I think really long-term, beyond our timeline, perhaps, connecting everything together better, I think would be ideal.
Which has like been the point, and we'll get into it more with, like we were talking with like targeted areas and just sort of having those places where you live, work, go like on a daily basis being, like part of that land use discussion, because it really does like, where things are really influences how you get around, obviously, so. Just keeping track of time, we want to go on to our last, area of Region 3, which is the Tanyard and Marley Neck area. Is everyone good with everyone? All right.
Yeah, so we didn't get just got a couple of comments in this area, just mainly surrounding the impact of the residential development and the warehouse and distribution development that's going on, and how that's gonna, increase traffic in this area. So Marley Neck Boulevard, just concerns about pedestrian. Is it Marley Neck Boulevard that goes? Yeah, so it'd be Marley Neck Boulevard, the need for pedestrian and bike safety, and then also just congestion in general.
What kind of warehouse out there?
Amazon,
many.
Amazon, yeah.
Best Buy, Amazon's the big one
Yeah.
now that just moved in. But there's tons, it's like right on the other side of the tree, all along Sully. There's a bunch of new development and warehousing.
So yeah, it's kind of tenured is along, what creek is it? I don't remember what creek that is, but it's along that side. There's a lot of new, townhomes and such going in there. Actually, on both sides, really, of Marlin Deck. But then there's a lot of industrial land up in this area that, actually, we got some zoning requests too in this area to change from industrial to, mixed use. So that's one we'll be reviewing, in our zoning discussions, but. So yeah, there's kind of a lot going on in this area in terms of it's changing a lot right now, and a lot of development currently happening, so.
I've got to ask, the lower left-hand corner, it seems you've got blue, red, you got the blue.
Yeah, that's.
Green and the yellow, it's like they're all mixed together. What's going on
Yeah,
there?
that's fair. That's,
Belts on Marley Station Mall.
I think, yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Marley Station Mall.
Okay, so it's like everybody's got some plans for it, but then it's an eyesore, but then.
Right.
Somebody actually loves it.
Well, if you want some alone time, you can walk around.
The Lovett was the Royal Farms, so. Yeah.
They're not excited about a
Yeah.
convenience store, huh?
Hey, we're in Region 3 too.
I'm not familiar with this area, but for those that live there are more familiar, is it an issue that like being able to cross from Marley Neck going north-south to Solly going north-south? And like, if there's an incident of some sort on one or the other, you're like stuck, is that?
They finally put a road through Tanner, so you can cut through Tanner from all the way up at the north end.
Okay.
Where it says Marlin Neck Trail. There, you can see right there, the goal, right there, you can finally get through, but that just opened 2 years ago, about a year to 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's one.
That did not used to be there.
That's one big thing with people who live out that way, and
Yeah.
if you can get stuck, if something crazy happens in the morning, you're stuck out on the peninsula, you're not going anywhere.
So we're just saying maybe better access across, is that something that?
No.
Well, I think that's interesting to note for, if we are getting zoning change requests, to sort of require that. I mean, that's not something we can do necessarily in zoning, but it's something we can note that, as part of this development approval process, you need to connect,
So there is a planned road in the functional classification map. I think it's around is it Nabs Creek or something, or is a road that kind of goes east of Solly? That I don't know if we have the layer, but it would continue, I think it's that road there, that would continue west of Marley Neck Boulevard to make that connection.
Yeah, that's Nabs Creek.
As a planned road, to make that connection. But those planned roads tend to run in opposition, both from the community, either that's there or newly developed. And a lot of developers do not want to make road connections, and people that live there don't want to make road connections because everyone wants to live on a cul-de-sac, and if you're at the end of a subdivision, it might be okay for you to drive past 22 houses, but you don't want those 22 houses driving past you. So as a transportation professional, it's great. We love it. It helps everybody, but there's a lot of community resistance that needs strong elected officials and government officials to kind of enforce that this benefits everybody. And, just like you use a lot of the other roads, people deserve to be able to use a road near you as well. But that doesn't always happen, I guess. And there is some stuff in the code that requires it, but it's not as explicit as it could be and not often enforced.
It sounds like the codes are kind of enforceable, forced sometimes, it's almost like the routes that we follow. So,
It's a suggestion.
yeah, it's like, we'll work it out.
And one of the other things that's to me, I say interesting, but so Solly Road, there's also Clark Road, I believe, over by Arundel Mills. So before me, but my understanding is that a lot of this development when they came in, the people that lived on Solly Road didn't want the development. They didn't want the road to be widened, and so the development then all dumped out onto Marley Neck Boulevard, and they agreed they would improve Marley Neck Boulevard. But so the Solly Road people, didn't want the growth, so they didn't want the road connection, so they didn't get the road connection. But now they still have the growth and all the traffic, and their road didn't get improved. So we did do a study of Solly Road of what needs to be done. It doesn't necessarily need to be widened, but there's some intersection improvements and some bike ped amenities that need to be made on that road. But that's $30 million project that there's not money for right now. So there's when we get to it, there's some improvements proposed on Solly, but that's one of those long-term plans again for that area. So Marley Neck, there was a typical section that was determined for that whole corridor. And as each development came in, they were building their frontage, but not every property develops matches up exactly with another property develops. So there's holes in the development, and I guess it wasn't connected very well. So there's kind of offsetting and it doesn't match. So the county is going back to kind of clean up the missing sections that weren't built and make the transitions better than how it was done. I think there's a phase one to make some pet improvements to the community to tie them into the school and that thing and another community and park and stuff. But ultimately it'll go back and fix I say fix, like complete the whole road cross section along the entire developed area. And there's some operational improvements and like I said, bike ped improvements being made for that area, at least on Marley Neck Boulevard. If you get the next slide, I'm not sure if there's other projects identified.
I think that might be it.
Okay, so I know there's on Solly Road, there's a shared use path that's for a section of that improvement that we were going to make that goes from Tanyard Springs down to the elementary school, I believe, or it goes down a certain distance, not the entire Solly Road. There's this Marley Neck Boulevard, and I don't know what the 648, I believe. There's some traffic issues there that we've got a lot of requests and concerns about. So we're looking at what our traffic engineer is looking at what they can do, given the limited right of way that's out there. But a lot of times just trying to make use of what we've got better, more efficiently or something, I guess, is a lot of what we're trying to do, go back and retrofit some of these roads. And you're not going to widen 648 to 4 lanes or something like that. So, how can we make it more efficient with what room we have?
Melissa, you live kind of over here, right? Is there anything else we're missing or?
Not particularly. I know I'm also really involved in my community, so it's right off at North Shore down there at Silver Sands. And everybody hates all the development that's going on. They say there's no more trees, so the wind is worse and there's more or less animals around, and the environmental impact of it all, I think is a big concern for people that have been there a long time. They came in, there was horses and like little farms all around that area, and now it's a lot of housing and apartments and all these big industrial buildings. So just keeping that in mind, keeping the balance there, I think is important for that region. And for transportation, yeah, I have to drive down Sully. I go out and I just decide if I have to go left or right, just depending on how traffic is, because a lot of times I'm going to Pasadena, it's kind of the same for me, but traffic will really change that up. If there's anything happening down in Pasadena off Mountain Road, which Sully goes down to, it's all blocked up. So that part, they have tons of traffic issues. I think it's not as bad right here in this little picture.
think the fundamental problem of all planning in the county on all dimensions is there's too many damn people here. And I think we should offer them lump sum incentives to move out of the county, like 50% of them. And then we wouldn't have so many.
They'll wait you out.
I guess we have the option of moving.
That's what's, the other thing is, I mean, you have to keep in mind, you know, if the Fort Meade NSA area, do you know what the average salary is, you know, coming in there? It's a six-figure salary. So people are like, this is good, these are good jobs around here, so I'm gonna stick around here, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest, huge picture versus like big picture talk. But
Yeah.
how the challenge of, like the draw is here.
Yeah.
So it's able to accommodate, like that, sure, the growth, but also people who are already around here too, because, they're here.
So I think that's it for our discussion. I think we did just put one graphic on the next slide about what we're talking about with this separated bike lane versus a shared use path and a buffered bike lane.
Yeah, just to get knowledgeable
Yeah,
on what those actually look like.
I like it.
This is sometimes called a side path when it's within the road right of way. And then, of course, when it's a trail, it's outside the road right of way.
So do we wanna, before we go to next steps, was there anyone, public comments? Patrick,
Oh, one public person in person as well.
He left, yeah.
Okay. Do we have anybody on the Zoom call who would like to offer any public comment? You can raise your hand and I'll promote you so you can speak. We have 5 guests on. And I'm not seeing any raised hands.
alright, so then,
Yeah, we can go to
Yeah.
next steps. So, like we said, our next meeting will be March 12th, again, here at this building from 5:30 to 8:30. It'll be a joint session with Region 1, so we'll be able to, Region 1 is the Brooklyn Park area, it's to the north, I think everyone's somewhat familiar. So there's an opportunity there for some collaboration in our first hour and a half. And then we'll split up into our own, and we'll use the divider and split up into 2, finish the rest of the meeting off. We have another community drop-in session that will focus on this topic, scheduled for it's tentatively scheduled in April. So we'll get the date for you when we have that ironed out. And then, again, the online questionnaire will close on the 27th, so.
What's that topic next time?
Land use and zoning. So it's actually, and we're having some people from the development community come in and talk about from their from their side of things, how it pencils out, and so that'll be part of the conversation. Also, then we'll talk about land use. And then are we having housing in that too? I can't remember.
I think we do want to try to
Yeah,
work in that group discussion that we wanted to have last time and didn't do it because we went virtual. I think we do want to work that into the next
We've
meeting
got a
as
lot.
well, so.
got a lot, because then the vision statement too, so there's a lot. But
Be ready.
Yeah.
Would you mind if we reopen the public comment? We did have one person, just raise their hand. So, Mr. Owen, I'm sorry, Desiree, before I do that, were you finished with
Yep.
next steps and everything? Okay, sorry. Mr. Owen, I'm gonna allow you to talk. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep,
Please go
hi.
ahead.
Just quick question. Could you just repeat what you said about rezoning requests and like land use updates? Like, what's the timeline on that? What's the next? Was that the SAC meeting on March 12th, or is that the drop-in session in April?
So March 12th will just be kind of we're not gonna go over the comprehensive zoning applications in that meeting. That will be the April meeting that we do that. The March meeting is just focused on, it'll be a presentation from some developers talking about development in the county. And then we'll talk about land use and kind of like a preempting the land use and zoning conversations we're gonna have.
Okay.
Yeah, so staff is reviewing the comprehensive zoning applications right now. And we will be talking about those applications in April.
Okay, and when are like decisions on those applications going to come out?
I guess the SAC needs to give their recommendation, and so that's part of, part of the process is that we will come to that meeting in April with our recommendations, and the SAC will give their recommendation as part of this process. And then those will get put together to go to PAB, the Planning Advisory Board. So it will be after, I don't know if we have a date set.
We'll be, once we have ours and the SAC and your guys' input on these applications, we'll have a initial map
Mhm.
that we'll have, that'll show, our thoughts. And that, again, like Desiree said, I'm not sure we have an actual date for that, but I mean, definitely.
Summertime.
Yeah, summer.
Yeah, and then just keep in mind, those are recommendations, those are not final decisions, because the final decisions will be made at council, so.
I got you. That makes sense. Thank you.
So do we have permission to tell everybody about call and ride, all, just send out the word? Is that all right?
site, yeah.
It's
actually ready to go.
Wow, what a gold mine.
All right, so we can close, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second. It's been motioned and properly seconded to adjourn the meeting, so the meeting is adjourned. Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
I don't think you could turn that.
So. So that used to be the main gate of Fort Meade, right? And it used to be you couldn't, like, you might be able